Why don't we come together? Why don't we come together? Why do we gotta fight? Why do we gotta fight? Let's be like sis and brother who finally got it right. Got it right. Oh. Let's face up each other. Black, brown, yellow, blue, white. Let's cherish all the color instead of spitting spite. Spitting spite. The highest we can.
You are listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and it's a good morning. I mean, even we all can kind of lament and share some pathos and crises that are going on in the world, but I think generally we have a choice to make about our perspective and the walk that we choose to walk and the race that we choose to race. And today, to choose a race that will kind of have some longevity and generational impact, I think it's important for folks to kind of just really devote this year of 2024, particularly in January, the beginning of the year, to what do we set our sights on? What kind of challenges do we think we might want to really embrace? And what kind of positive actions do we want to undertake? And I say that as a lead into today's show, which is bringing research to the community and update on the Yale Center for Clinical Investigation and the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church partnership, because health is wealth. I mean, you can debate that phrase, that mantra, but health is wealth. And any goals or aspirations that you might have, that we might have, that the universe might have, depends on us remaining healthy, spiritually healthy, bodily healthy, biologically healthy, and medically healthy. So today's show is bringing research to the community and update on the Yale Center for Clinical Investigation and African Methodist Episcopal Zion partnership. Believe it or not, in 2010, leaders from the Yale Center for Clinical Investigation partnered with the leaders of the AME Zion Church. And I intentionally have people will hear the acronym AME, but I think it's important as we approach Black History Month that African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, they really just give the shout out and kudos to our forefathers and foremothers as they kind of christened ourselves the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Zion Church, to identify ways to increase minority participation in clinical research. Clinical research is fundamental, important, vital, crucial for our health and well-being moving forward. Now, in its 14th year, the Cultural Ambassador Program is not only going strong, but it's vibrant and has become a sought-after model in the space of healthcare. Again, 2010, we're now in 2024. So this morning, we really had the pleasure of chatting with the founders of this movement for a discussion on how they are moving. They and we can move collectively this needle in terms of really making equitable representation research not only a temporary reality, but an ongoing and sustained reality. Today's guests are Tesheia Johnson. Tesheia is the Chief Yale Center for Clinical Investigation, Clinical Research Strategy and Development Officer, and Chief Operating Officer for YCCI. And we're joined by, again, the founder, Reverend Dr. Leroy O. Perry Jr., pastor of St. Stephen's AME Zion Church, and cultural ambassador to the Yale Clinical Research Program, and Reverend Elvin Clayton, pastor, Walters Memorial AME Zion Church, and cultural ambassador to the Yale Clinical Research Program. Welcome to everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
Let's kind of open it up. We have 55 minutes, and again, this is a historic show because I'm thinking Tesheia and Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton, as people listen to this, there's so much of our history that folks do not don't remember. And we this opportunity to remind folks of the struggles and the achievements that you have made, and that you've invited the community to join you in the struggle. So to everyone, it's been a while since we've had a chance to talk in this kind of general framework. But let's hear about the work that everyone is doing with YCCI. And let's begin the day with you, maybe telling us a little bit about each of yourselves and anything personal you'd like to share for them to know, and all in the kind of the context or the frame, as they say, of health equity and representation in research, and how it kind of became a concern, not just a concern, but a proactive action thought for the three of you. Tesheia, would you like to start?
Absolutely. Thrilled to get started here. And Tom, for the record, my name has officially changed to Harris.
Oh, okay. All right.
I have been married and happily married, and new last name. So debuting it on your show here in
Thank you.
2024. So
Thank you.
thank you. But I had the pleasure of meeting Reverend Dr. Perry and Reverend Clayton almost 15 years ago now, I think. And we started this conversation. It was a long journey back then. I like to share that is as much as Reverend Clayton has a smile for everyone. That our first meeting was it was not smiles, and Reverend Perry sat back in the chair with his arms crossed, just kind of giving me the look that only Reverend Dr. Perry can give. And they were skeptical of the conversations that we wanted to have around clinical research and clinical trials. And rightly so, given all of the past issues of research malpractice in communities of color, and all of the challenges, the historical perspectives that this subject brings. But we were able to have a deeper conversation around the true health disparities that really plague our community. And I shared with the AME Zion community at the annual conference that where we live matters more than our genetics. So they said ZNA versus DNA, meaning your zip code versus your DNA. And we're just plagued on so many fronts. And so we had an open conversation about those disparities. And then I shared the disparities in clinical research participation and how people of color really were not participating as new therapies and new treatments were being approved by the FDA. And with that, it changed, I think it changed the conversation, and they were more open to the conversation. And so I'm just so thrilled. We're here, like I said, almost 15 years later, still
Yes.
fighting a good fight, but so much has happened, and so many incredible accomplishments, really led by these two gentlemen that I'm just humbled to be on the show with today. So I'm looking forward to the conversation here, and I'll let Reverend Clayton and Reverend Dr. Perry speak, and then I can go all day. So I'll let them get their word in now so that we can keep going.
Gents, she's passed the mic on. Reverend Perry?
Yes, Tom, I am, I guess I'm humbled because in retrospect, our hesitancy with regards to clinical research and participation by minorities, particularly Blacks who have been disenfranchised in one sense and, been practiced in some form of medical apartheid on another. We were really hesitant about being guinea pigs and hesitant about working with Yale, who we did not feel any affiliation to or for. But having had this open conversation with Ms. Tesheia Harris, who is just absolutely brilliant, and I think that it is because of her brilliance and her tenacity that we were able to come together and to realize how we needed each other in terms of we're going to change our health perspectives for our members of our community and in a more global sense also. I think that what we have developed is a template that can be used anywhere that has brought evidence-based results of what can happen when there is this kind of mutual collaboration. And that's what she has brought to the table. It's something that we could not do on our own, and she could not do on her own. But she had the tenacity and the vision and the drive to put this whole play into practice. And so we're just immensely grateful to her for what she has done. And when I say brilliant, let me tell you, it's not local brilliance. This woman is brilliant. I mean, all over this field. I mean, the FDA, the NIH, Morehouse, Meharry, the schools in Puerto Rico, and other colleges, medical colleges across the country, and even in London. I mean, she's the point person. And we need her and we love her. And it's because of her hard work that I think that we have become so sought after as cultural ambassadors.
Excellent, excellent. Reverend Clayton.
Thank you so much, Tom. Let me take a personal note here first, because
Please.
I believe the question was, did we want to share our something personal that we want the audience to know. A year ago, I was in Africa and Ghana, and the temperature was 80 degrees. The sky, for the most part, was clear. The water was clear. The people were friendly. The food was well seasoned. The church services were spirit-filled. All that was going on. And today we're here in Connecticut where this temperature is about 20 degrees. And I'm wishing I was back there in that warm climate. But in order for me to go to that, in order for me to be able to go there, I had to get a vaccination to make sure I was safe there. And it brought me back to YCCI. And one of the things that we're often asked is, what do you want to say about health equity, and what is your concern? I didn't have a concern until I met Tesheia Harris. This thing was far from my radar. But you heard Dr. Perry say that she's brilliant. And see, some people are brilliant and they just try to do the whole thing themselves. But in this case, she pulled in some giants along with her to train us. People like Dr. Christo and Dr. Bob Sherwin, C.C. Calhoun, Linda Coleman, Marcella Nunez-Smith, and the list goes on. And our success is because the brilliance of Tesheia to make sure that we had the proper training from the proper people so that we can share with our community.
Profound. Talk to me about I've mentioned this word cultural ambassador, and we're going to talk about the research and achievements and challenges and just kind of a reflection, as well as not just a historical reflection, but thoughts of steps we're going to make for the future from a sustainability and innovation standpoint. But talk to me about the naming of the partnership, the cultural ambassadors. I'm intrigued with that because we're not, cultural ambassadors are not a jazz group. You're not a gospel group. So I was really, I love names and wordsmithing, but what was the significance behind the name of the partnership, the cultural ambassadors? Anyone?
Well, Tom, I'd like to simply say
Dr. Perry.
that religion is faith clothed in culture. And that's a Tillichian theological understanding. And I think that what this being clothed in culture has brought some stigmatized bad information that we corrected through this process. Because religion and science do work hand in hand and can work hand in hand. And this is one of the reasons we chose that name, because we're saying that science and religion can be compatible. And we need them to be compatible in order for us to succeed in this field. and in terms of taking charge of our health.
Excellent. And Tesheia, you wanted to?
Yeah, I wanted to add, one of the things that I think is just so significant about the partnership that's I think reflected partially in the name, but not wholly. Prior to the development of the Cultural Ambassadors Program, when you said to an institutional review board or one of the scientists at Yale that you wanted to optimize a study for enrollment by other populations, by everyone to be reflective of the US, the first thing they might say is, oh, let's translate the informed consent into Spanish. But never a consideration that the language didn't reflect the culture of the individuals you were trying to reach in the studies, or that it wasn't optimized in a way. One of the things I've learned so much, and these two gentlemen have just made me blush so much with all of the compliments, but I want to say now the brilliance that they had really teaching everyone that they encountered the importance of, it's not just putting something in eighth grade language and saying, oh, someone will see it, they'll understand it because it's written at an eighth grade level or it's translated into Spanish. That people have to be ready to hear the message that you're providing. And it has to be provided in a way that meets them where they are. And so I think the naming, the cultural ambassadors, it really reflects all of those messages, that what these gentlemen and all of the colleagues that they have brought to the table do for the research message is they take it and they transition it, all of the science, and cut through the language and the red tape and say, this is the message that people are ready to hear. And we're going to tell you not only how to refine this message so that people can hear it, but also where to deliver it, how to deliver it, so you maximize its impact. And that's really been the power that doesn't always come through when you hear the name cultural ambassadors, but it's been transformative. And it's really because of the leadership of Reverend Dr. Perry and Reverend Clayton, and not only the credibility that they bring and the way that they are able to enhance these messages, but it's also the passion. I joked about that very first meeting, but to go from there to the passion that drives them every day, it's really remarkable. And it's warms my heart every time I see it, and every time I'm on a call with them, listening to them talk about the importance of participation in trials and health equity issues.
Excellent, excellent. That's challenges. Talk to us a little bit about, again, 14 years. I mean, that's a long, that's a road. If not a stony road, it's might be smooth at some point, but certainly stony at others. Challenges maybe that have been faced along the way, and you hear this phrase, lessons learned. But what I concur with you totally, Tisha, is that it's been, from my observation of YCCI and ambassadors, as you guys have been adept and malleable and innovative. But what have been some of the challenges you faced along the way, or may even be facing in the future, and what lessons are we learning and actually sharing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, for the challenges, I think that the hard part about clinical research and health messages are some of the things that we just talked about. Really, health is such a personal thing. And at times can be also really frightening. Sometimes when there's a conversation between a person and their physician, it's at a low point in their medical history. They've just been diagnosed with something, or their child or their parent has been diagnosed with something. Or, I hear so many times from so many people in our community, I don't want to know. I'd rather not know. And so the scary aspect of health and medicine. At the same time, what's even more terrifying to me is just all of the health disparities that we face as people of color, as Black people. When you think about the mental health rates and the suicide rates in children being 5 times that of their white counterparts, prostate cancer 2 times more likely to die of prostate cancer, breast cancer higher rates, diabetes, cardiac disease, even we saw during COVID. So when you talk about the challenges, we're climbing an uphill mountain based on those challenges. And then I think you factor in a real challenge today, which is the misinformation and the disinformation that exists in so many places. And so finding these trusted sources of information, and then who are the trusted messengers. And so I think in terms of the success, really honing in this and on the idea that there are people in the community who have the trust of the community, who the community will listen to, the community will be prepared to hear a message from that they trust. And so I think that primarily has been one of the most profound lessons. I think that so many physicians and researchers thought that all I have to do is go out and speak and people will believe me, but that wasn't the case. But having the trusted messengers from the ambassadors program out in the community with the knowledge, speaking about it, it just opened people's minds. And so I think that those are some of the profound challenges and lessons learned. And then I think the other thing that I would say where so much innovation came from these two gentlemen on the call, but when we had to pivot during COVID, so much of what we had done for the first parts of the partnership was out in the community, touching people, being at fairs, being at, church events, being at Junta, being in different locations and having actual contact. And then COVID hit. Everything was shut down. We had to figure out a new way of reaching people, new methods, which I think also led us to the partnership with you that was proposed by these gentlemen. And so I think really, another pivotal challenge with us was met by the innovation of these two gentlemen saying, well, let's take our message on the road to Zoom, to radio shows, to other ways of reaching people. And they help to transform the way that we think about things. So we faced a lot of, I think, challenges over the years, but they've led to some pretty innovative solutions that, as Reverend Perry has already said, so many other centers and programs would like to copy. So that's my perspective. But love for Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton to
Excellent.
join in.
Reverend Perry, in this
yes,
regard?
Tom, I think that the issue was the fear of, and that is something that all races and people experience, the fear of participating in any kind of clinical research. And then there's the question of trust. Fear and faith here meet at this crossroads. And so we were able to, through communication and innovation, try to lessen those fears through education. So all of our cultural ambassadors have to go through a certain amount of training about consents and IRBs, plus a historical understanding of medical apartheid. And then we had to find a way of being innovative.
Yes.
Of being able to communicate this in such a way in our community that they could see that we were serious and competent about what we were doing. And so one of the things we decided, I think, first was, before we jumped into the media, we said, into the media with you, is that we said that when people read the Yale newspaper or newsletter, it means absolutely nothing to them. So we decided, and we worked very hard, and Tesheia, it was phenomenal the work she did to get us our first newsletter out, and subsequently our second and third. And I think that has helped our community, because not only do we partner those newsletters with members of our congregation, but with members of our community, CAP agencies and barbershops, and throughout the community. That is powerful. Because when we think about medicine and research, in the past, it has always come from the top down. Now we're able to start at the bottom and go and meet halfway. I think that is, that's phenomenal. Our lay people, our missionaries, our young people, we've engaged our young people to become ambassadors. So we're reaching all different levels, which heretofore have just been overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
we've
Mm-hmm.
never had a radio show that dealt with taking care of your health, or a newsletter that looked at, you know, medical research, or employing young ambassadors and training them. This has never happened. That's why I say there's a template that we got
Mm-hmm.
that I think is so valuable in this whole field that others will beat down the door to try to figure out this formula.
Mm-hmm. Reverend Clayton?
Yes. Challenges. The researchers needed more minority people to be a part of clinical research,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't have a clue how to help the minority community to be a part.
Mm.
And so I think we played a large part in helping them to increase the minority population
Yeah.
to be a part of this clinical research. You know, oftentimes people want something and they say they want something, but the only people that's talking are the people in that room.
Mm.
Through the cultural ambassadors, we have been allowed, or we are a part of the room to share the thoughts of the community. If you want, or if you need more minority women to be a part of a study, and she had 3 or 4 kids, she could have a job, her husband could have a job, and nowadays the babysitters are expensive. So we shared with them that transportation might be a way to help get more of these people involved in the clinical research. Now everybody's talking about this stuff. It's amazing to me that early on in the meetings that as we traveled up and down the East Coast, everybody sounded like a doctor or professor. After the cultural ambassadors went to these meetings, things were broken down, not watered down, but broken down, so that the general public can understand. And again, everything goes back to Tesheia, who was able to help us share the information with people who otherwise would not have received the information in a way that they could understand it.
That's excellent. Give us a little example of the increase in the enrollment and how that has taken place and manifested itself. How we have increased the enrollment
Before Tesheia goes, because she's got all the data.
All right, all right, all right.
Let me just say that you know, enrollment was low when we started, but one of the significant things that took place was Tesheia had helped us to outline for our community what were some of the disparities that members of our community were concerned with. And so things like sickle cell and prostate cancer and diabetes. And so we were able to work with some of the researchers on prostate cancer by enrolling people and bringing to the communities what was some of the new research with prostate cancer. So we would go to barbershops and beauty shops. We didn't just target the men, but we target their wives and their daughters. And innovative. This has never been done. When we looked at sickle cell and we saw that, you know, how many of our sickle cell patients were treated when they went in like they were drug addicts and they just needed some pain medication. Tesheia single-handedly challenged this at Yale. And we started a partnership with the Sickle Cell Clinic, and we've had numerous shows with you on this issue. And let me just say, during COVID, which I think is when America really looked at the disparity, Tesheia was already doing town hall meetings, not only for our ambassadors, but for different towns like the town of Branford, the town of New Haven, Waterbury. And we would go on Monday nights and Tuesday nights for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, so that people could ask questions and somehow take charge of their health, dispel some of the myths. Who does this? Who has ever done this? Because they don't have the passion. But this young lady has a lot of passion, Lord knows. And I think because of her, we were able to be successful in so many ways of reaching a community that might have been completely forgotten about, ignored during this whole pandemic.
I think teacher, I think Leroy's passed the mic to you.
Pass the mic. Okay, I'm ready. No, I just couldn't agree more with everything that Reverend Clayton and Reverend Dr. Perry have said. But you know, when I said earlier that the partnership had really just transformed Yale, when we started this work in 2010, the best numbers that we could identify at the time, and we weren't great with the data because so many of the records weren't electronic. So it was even hard to get numbers, but we were around 2% of our total enrollment in clinical trials identified as a person of color. Now across all of the participants in our research, and we've grown it significantly. You know, in some cases, our industry work 950% since that partnership started. So the total volume of research has changed, but on average, we're around 30 to 35% of the total participation across all of our studies now identify as a person of color. But importantly, where the ambassadors are involved in optimizing and carrying the messages of the study and changing the research design to make sure that they're considering all of these issues that Reverend Clayton and Reverend Dr. Perry have already addressed. Most of those studies are, the average is around 62% of the enrollment is a person of color. In some studies, as high as 98%. So when I say transformative, it's truly been transformative. And then we also, in terms of some of the innovations, we have a partnership with the FDA Office of Minority Health and Health Equity, which has, you know, just been phenomenal. And under that memorandum of understanding, their first goal is to expand the cultural ambassadors program as a model nationally. So even the FDA recognizing, as Reverend Dr. Perry said, that this is a template, but in one of our awarded contracts there, we just completed a social media influencer pilot, and we're seeing that, you know, the data is again showing that these trusted messengers, people who have influence in the community, can drive other individuals who identify as a person of color, as Black, as Hispanic, or Latino, or Latinx, to participate in clinical research. And so when you talk about the data, we're so much more than the metrics and the data, but the data is also overwhelming and impressive, you know, showing that the innovation of this program is really changing the makeup of how our research looks at Yale. And working with all of these other centers, as Reverend Dr. Perry mentioned, we're hoping to have a larger impact with the program. So it's just been phenomenal.
Excellent.
And Tisha, can you mention the My Chart and Epic, what you've done there to help with these numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. When we started this, our use of the electronic health record obviously was very different. I think COVID changed everything for us. We as an institution now, almost 90% of the patients that are seen at Yale have a MyChart account now. You know, less admittedly in Black and Brown communities have taken on MyChart, but Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton and the work that they are doing is continuing to expand the total numbers. But we just completed another study under that FDA grant where we've been able to optimize the messaging directly to patients, and so we're seeing like which of the messages
Mm,
resonate with which
mm,
communities, and again
mhm,
adding this innovation. So I think one of the exciting things about partnering with Reverend Clayton and Reverend Dr. Perry is they don't let us rest on our laurels. You're only as good as what your next result is, and so they're constantly challenging us to be better. And so we're constantly looking at what are the tools that we have to reach individuals. And so we were able to really integrate the entire message, the enrollment in clinical trials into my chart. So as a way for individuals to sign up for clinical research. And so if you are a patient or not a patient, you can go to my chart. If you are a patient, you can go into my chart. You can go into the menu and you'll see research studies, and you can build out a profile and select your study preferences. If you're not a patient, you can call, and I wrote the number down because I can't remember it by heart, but 877 978 8343, and someone will help you set up the account. And
mm,
you can speak to someone in Spanish if you need to also be able to do that, or you can email help us discover at yale.edu and ask for help in setting up a profile. But integrating these so that we really have the ability for patients and individuals to control their research preferences, to tell us what they want to hear about and how they want to hear about it.
mm,
We've been able to integrate that into my chart, and I don't think we would have had that, early on when we were deciding whether we were going to be an institution where you had to opt in to research or opt out. One of the things that our cultural ambassadors helped the leadership at Yale New Haven to do was to say, we need to put the power in the hands of the patient, not in
mm,
the hands of the institution. So let the messages go directly to the patients. Let them decide what they want to do and set their
mhm.
preferences. And so that's really been another innovation that has driven a lot of the work, not only here locally, but Epic as a corporation has adopted a lot of the learnings and the lessons learned from our work at Yale into the platform today, and has shaped what it looks like. So it's just been, again, just phenomenally exciting, all of the innovation that's happened in the program.
Excellent. And Tisha, Reverend Perry's mentioned the town halls. Just as you were talking, I wondered if you could share, because again, it's kind of the purpose of this show is to really just share the history and the landmarks that have been achieved. But you've had at least two. I'm thinking of the Henrietta Lacks. Her family came to New Haven 2 or 3 years ago, and then you had various pharmaceutical folks. Talk about those conferences, which are really CNN national conferences, as far as I'm concerned.
This is also a part of the partnership with the FDA Office of Minority Health and Health Equity, that we hosted innovation summits where we were talking about not only the work that we've done, but innovations by others. And so the first one of the things that we decided to do, or I think the idea actually came from Reverend Dr. Perry and Reverend Clayton, but to make sure people really understood the historical perspective. And
Mm,
so we thought, who better to speak about that than the relatives of Henrietta Lacks? And so they came to our innovation summit and they shared the experience of their relative. We had the great granddaughter, I think, and I think she was the sister-in-law of one of the sons,
mm-hmm,
who came to speak at the event, and they talked about just the harm to the family and how they felt, and also, but not just on a negative note, but then the legislative changes that came as a
mm,
result of what happened to Henrietta Lacks, and how important, and their feelings about research. And so we were able to kind of have that very negative point in history turn into something that was positive and
yes.
motivating, talking about the changes in legislation. Then we were also able to talk about a lot of the work that we had done. And then the Net Summit, we decided that it would be great to also hear from, because so much of the innovations and the therapeutics that get approved are studies that come through pharmaceutical companies and the
Mm-hmm,
pharmaceutical industry. And so in that we were able to have some of the top pharmaceutical companies, Merck and Pfizer and others, talk about how the innovations that their companies were focused on to enhance enrollment by populations of color. And so it was we had two really great summits, and
Yes.
hoping to plan another. But these are, these were milestone events for us. And we also another huge achievement is we also have a grant from the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers of America Foundation now. And really, it's about trying to take a lot of the lessons that we have here out more nationally. And so we're in this
Mm.
grant, we're partnered with Morehouse School of Medicine,
Mm-hmm.
the Research Centers and Minority Health Coordinating Center that's also out of Morehouse, and but made up of the 26 minority facing and historically Black institutions and colleges and Vanderbilt. And in that, we're setting up 10 sites that are in communities in the South to make sure that we're looking at how can we take these practices and these locations that have traditionally not been a part of clinical research. We can't name the sites yet because we're still in the process and embargoed around it, but you'll be hearing a lot of news from us soon on that. But really, how can we bring research closer to the community? And here locally in the FDA grant that we spoke about earlier, we're also testing out this model of kiosk.
Mm.
And if we were to set up a location in the church or in one of the community-based organizations, would it make research more convenient, like to Reverend Clayton's point, so that people don't have to travel as far? Could they just,
Yes.
show up at the church in Bridgeport at Walter's Memorial instead of coming to Yale in New Haven and have part of a research visit at the church? It'll solve for the broadband issues. It might make it more convenient. So really, how can we test some of these innovations and see what really works to make sure that we're inclusive and everyone has equitable access to consider being a part of research?
We have about 10 minutes, so as things kind of cross everyone's mind, please kind of share in because it's
Yeah,
just such a rich conversation. Reverend Perry?
yeah, I wanted to say that also with this breakthroughs.
Mm.
Two of the things. One is that we wanted to, as a community, meet with pharmaceuticals
Mm.
because we had some issues with them and suspicions. And I think it is because of this partnership that we were able to let them know some of our concerns, like when the medicine is approved, how will it be affordable for Black people?
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to make our template so powerful that we could sit at the table with them and make suggestions about how they could reach out into the community in a more positive way and work along with community because we're working for the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to say that in terms of this outreach, whoever would think that during COVID, when the most vulnerable part of our minority population would be left out, that Yale would sponsor a pilot program that would reach out to senior citizens from 60 to 90,
Mm.
94,
Mm.
and help them with telemedicine, help them with getting onto Facebook, helping them to be a part and helping them to cope with this whole pandemic that left them as third-class citizens
Mm.
in the war against this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And because of Tesheia and her initiative, we were able to sponsor the program, one of the programs at St. Stephen's. And let me tell you, the people are still now able to get onto Zoom, to do
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, to go to church now without having to leave the house. And they do feel empowered. And so
Mm-hmm.
part of what we're doing, no one else is doing this, has done this. I mean, the schools are trying to get and the government, city governments are trying now to put Wi-Fi in houses, but we got them tablets, we give them places where they can use the Wi-Fi, and we work with them to help them make sure that they have Wi-Fi. That's something that's just innovative and should be noted in
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about the YCCI partnership with the cultural ambassadors.
And Tisha, I believe you'll be in terms of your. I might have to kind of ask if I can be one of your agents to kind of work on your game plan. But you're going to be in Waterbury, I believe, next month for a community health fair.
Yes, yes. It's also one of the things that Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton have been able to arrange are these health fairs and health events that are in the community, and it's a great way to not only share the knowledge of what we're doing, but to reach the community where they are, answer their questions face to face. So we're really excited about the event. We had one, as you know, at the park in the summer that you were able to attend, and they're just great events. We're really excited to be there. And one of the other things, if I may for a minute,
Please.
just go back to another innovation. One of the things that I think really just struck home during COVID was the conversation with the cultural ambassadors, specifically with Reverend Clayton and Reverend Dr. Perry. They were worried about young people and making sure that young people had, the ability, educational activities, everything had been shut down during COVID. A lot of the partnerships, especially the things that were free, um, people weren't doing those, and so they wanted to focus on this idea of how can we change the face of medicine. Another part of the initiative, making sure that the people in positions look like us, and so they challenged us to get started with a program for young people, and so we launched the clinical and translational high school exposures program. So for students 15 and older, and we held a virtual internship, and so it was really exciting. I think we've had interest now for well over 1,000 kids from around the world, not even just locally, and I think over 300 of 300 or 400 applications. We've now had, I think, a little over 100 interns in the 3 years that we've run the program. We're planning for year 4 now, and it's just been phenomenal. We have kids from all over the country, from other countries that are part of the program, but kids who are from rural communities, first generation to think about college, and so we're able to share this knowledge with them and get them excited about science and medicine from the perspective of the community and how they can make a difference. And so, that's been a really exciting accomplishment of the program as well that I wanted to mention. But that's all driven by these two incredible gentlemen on the phone and pushing on the call here and pushing us to innovate and think about things differently.
And let me just say that also because of Paris, many of the researchers have come to our events. Like C.C. Calhoun went to the blood drive at Bridgeport with Reverend Clayton. Reverend Aniema has been to us a number of times, meeting our young people and our congregation with regard to the COVID-19 vaccine. And when it looked like many of our members of our community had to stand in line to get the vaccine, which was a deterrent, Tesheia arranged to have Yale bring the vaccine into our communities, into all of our communities, so that it would be available to people more readily. And I think our first time we had over 100 people doing that, and doing the first offering of the COVID vaccine.
Yes.
So these are just monumental steps. I think that, and I'm hoping that Tesheia will somehow put these in writing as markers, as historical markers of our work and her work, because I think it's significant, and I think the world, it should not be hidden any longer than it already has been of what we can do and have done and are able to do in the future.
We have about 3 more minutes. So Reverend Clayton, I want to give you a chance to kind of make some comments, and then Reverend Perry, and then Tesheia, I'd ask you to close us out. Reverend Clayton?
Yes, I would just like to share that the connection and the growth of our congregations in terms of knowledge and clinical research, it is basically what has happened with YCI through the work of Sister Harris. Now, you heard about the health fairs, but we had a very successful flu vaccination clinic in the church, a very successful COVID, multiple COVID vaccines in the church. And then at the Total Mortgage Arena, the whole town and community were involved in the blood drive. And C.C. Calhoun was there sharing about sickle cell. And so this is larger than you would ever imagine. And it has not stopped. It continues to grow. And as a matter of fact, I need to put a plug in. C.C. Calhoun will be at Walters on the 25th of February, sharing with us and on a Sunday morning to tie in the connection between faith and medicine.
Excellent. Excellent. Reverend Perry?
No, I think that I think it's, like I said, it's just phenomenal. The work that we've done and the work that we're doing and the possibilities of even being more creative and innovative going forward.
Yes.
I can't tell you the number of ideas that we had to, and we were challenged with. I mean, they didn't want to do the Tom Ficklin show initially. They didn't want to do the newsletter, but because it's a collaboration and it's a partnership, it just goes to show you what can happen when you're willing to work hand in hand.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's one of the things that has made us who we are.
Tisha, we have 30 seconds. I want to give you the last word.
I just want to say thank you to Reverend Dr. Perry, Reverend Clayton, and to you, Tom, for helping us carry this message and change not only the face of research, but the face of those participating in clinical research at Yale. So that's how I want to close it out with just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Excellent.
And she's doing a town hall tomorrow night, if you're interested.
Oh, that's right.
The word out.
Yes. Harry, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's keep it going onward and upward. And one of my best friends says, until then. Practice up, Reverend Clayton. Practice up.
Why don't we come together? Why don't we come together? Why do we gotta fight? Why do we got to fight? Let's be like sis and brother who finally got it right. Let's raise up each other. Black, brown, yellow, blue, white. Let's cherish all the color instead of spitting spite. The highest we can.
You are listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.